We're going to go into some more detail about what you can actually do with your sprites once you have them into Edge Animate. Now, on the last video, the very beginning of 6A video, I went through all the steps on importing a sprite that you already made into the program as kind of a preview of what was coming up. Here they are again. If you need them in detail, just go ahead and pause. I'll go through them, but rather quickly as I bring this one in. So here I am in Adobe Edge Animate, and I'm kind of pretending here that I'm making like a little cover your mouth campaign that would go, like, say, on the side of a website at 200 by 200 pixels. So, and I've created this in Illustrator and then saved it out as a ping file that'll become my sprite. And at the end of this video, if there's time, I'll go into some detail about how you can, because I know a lot of people prefer Illustrator over Photoshop for making simple graphics like this. So I'll show you a little bit either at the end of this video or I'll make a separate one. So here we go. We're going to go File. We're going to say Import Sprite Sheet. We're going to find out where that sprite sheet is in our folder system, and we are going to click on Open. Brings us to this little sub-menu, and if we put our cursor here and actually just put it over the top and swipe backwards so we can see everything, what we've got here is a sprite sheet that has 1, 2, 3 rows, 4 columns. So let's set that up first, and then if we preview this, we can see that it's very, very fast. So we'll maybe make that half the speed by playing with these numbers here. So the animation right now, the whole thing is just a ½ second long. What if we change that to 1, which is equivalent to 12 frames per second? Then we have these trimming options, which are here by default. We'll just zero all of those out, starting up here at the top right. So I'll hit 0 tab, 0 tab, 0 tab, 0 tab, 0 tab, and then I will click on Import. Now what I have is in my images, I actually have the whole entire sprite sheet. Don't really need that out here, so I'll delete it. And then under symbols, I have the actual symbol that was created for the sprite sheet. So now here we're moving on to some new content. The symbol that is created is indeed an editable symbol. So if I go to symbols and I click right on the icon for the symbol, it takes me into the edit mode for this. And if I step through one frame at a time, I can see what happens is I actually have one frame too many. That's my last frame, but because these things go in rows and columns, I actually have 11 usable images and then one extra of nothingness. Now, the program doesn't work very well in that I can't just click here and delete this one, but I'll show you a workaround on that in just 1 second. First, I want to preview it so you can see what we have so far. So there's our little guy sneezing all over the place. It only happens one time. So for those of you who are happy with yours, and let's pretend we're happy with this one for right now, all you have to do is inside the timeline for the symbol. Now keep in mind, I am in the timeline for the symbol, not the stage timeline. There's the stage, right? Got all this extra stuff in here, which I'll get rid of in a minute. But to go into the timeline for the symbol, I either double click right here in the library or on an instance of the symbol in the stage. Either way, you go into edit mode. They look a little bit different in how they're treated depending on which way you go in. From the stage, it helps you see things that might be around it. From the library, you're more isolated. Okay, so normally what you would do to get this thing to loop is you would bring the playhead out to the end of that animation and you would click on the insert trigger. That pops up this little coding help menu, and then in here you're going to either write the code if you know it or use these items here to help us. So what we want is for this thing to keep playing. So I click on playback, and then play seems like the most logical choice here. And then what is it that I want to keep playing? Is it the stage? Well, no, in this case it's actually inside that symbol. And then what I'm going to do here is hit enter and look at the code and I can see that just from experience, this is what I want. This is extra. Don't need that. And I'll get into some of this stuff in more detail, but sim.play is a very common bit of code. So now I'll close this. We can see we have that trigger there. If we preview the movie now, we can see that that symbol just keeps on looping. Now, if you have, in my instance, where you have just one frame too many in there, here's how you have to deal with that, at least in this version. So I'm going to delete this trigger that I put in last time. What I want is for when it gets here to start playing again. I don't want it to ever get here. So I'm going to put the playhead right there, and then I'm going to insert the trigger, playback, click play, hit enter. Oop, no, one more step right there, then hit enter. Now, the difference here, and I'll get rid of this again so we can concentrate on what's important, sim.play, that's what we want, but there's one little thing missing, and I want you to see this all the way through. I'm going to command return and play this. What happened? Why did it only play one time? Well, that's where this gets interesting. In here in the symbol, what I did was in this 11th frame, I put a play. So what happens is it gets here, it tells it to play, which it was already doing anyway, and then it gets to the end, and then it just stops. So it's not very effective as is, but if we do one simple little thing to it, I'm going to double click on it, take it in here. All I have to do is put a 0 inside those parentheses, which indicate where it is to play from. So right at the very beginning is what 0 means. That's where it's going to play. So if I hit command return right now, it continues to play, and you see we don't have that kind of blank frame that caused it to blink a little bit before. Now, we can take things even a step further. What if we felt like this was happening too fast for people to even get an idea of what was happening? We can take our symbol and we can edit it even further. We don't really need this one. We never get there, so let's move that way out of the way. But let's let people see the final frame for just a little bit longer so they get the sense that they were just sneezed on. And then we'll see that until we get here time-wise. So let's see what that looks like. If we wanted to, we could go even further with that in here. Now this is showing up by accident because I probably had auto insert on, so let me just delete those. But if I select, let's say that I want him to sit there and the audience to be able to detect him before he sneezes, I can just, what I'm doing is holding down shift and clicking on all of these frames. Then I can click on any one of them and they'll all move together. So what I'm doing is giving the viewers a chance to see the little guy before he gets to sneeze. And then I can move my replay down a little bit further, and now it looks something like this. So the main point I'm trying to make here is that this sprite is just like any other symbol that you can do maneuvering to it. Now, if you wanted to increase the timing of it in general, like make it go slower and faster, I personally think you'd be better just to start over with File, Import, change the timing there, because trying to move these out uniformly probably would be a bit of a pain at this point. You might be able to, but I still even think this would take too long if you went to Timeline and Insert Time, and you inserted the same amount of, fractional time for each one. But yeah, it seems like a lot of extra work. Once the sprite is in Animate, you can treat it just like any other element that's in here. So if I wanted to further animate this on the main timeline, no matter what it is, let's say I just want to rotate it around as it's doing its thing. So I'll just hit rotate to insert a trigger, or in fact, let's make it easy and go to this guy's here, and we'll say by the time it gets over to here, we'll rotate it all the way around, which will be 360 degrees. And if we preview that, so of course that only applies to the first time, right? Because it's going around here. And you could move it from left to right on the stage, whatever you want to do. The symbol itself, which in this case is a sprite, is going to continue to do its thing, and the rest of it is just going to loop or do whatever you have it doing on the main timeline. The next video on this subject will be dealing with things that originate from Illustrator. In particular, we'll cover SVGs and just how to make a sprite sheet in Illustrator.